Alright, so this is going to be one of my most important videos probably ever, and it's because YouTube has censored another video. It was the one from December 15th where I was making a video about the doctors from Ontario admitting that they're, just reading off scripts and that they're puppets. Again, that's pretty much the definition of someone who reads off a script. I don't know what's so controversial about that. So the first thing I wanted to bring up is usually I do it at the end, but I wanted to do it at the start. Um, you got to follow me on those other platforms. Again, they're all linked up below. BitChute is the biggest one. They weren't for whatever reason they weren't. I wasn't able to upload videos there. That happens sometimes on BitChute, where it takes forever to upload videos, and sometimes they never upload. But nonetheless, follow me in those other platforms. Another thing to point out too is that it's only going to be a matter of time until YouTube bans me and bans. It's not that I'm the greatest person ever. I'm not going to claim to be that, but eventually it's also going to get to the point to where YouTube's going to ban anyone that has any form of credibility when it comes to political commentary. Right? They're going to ban anyone who has um, any form of any decency whatsoever when it comes to political commentary. And the way I see it is that at this point, anybody who the big social media platforms aren't going after, you probably shouldn't be trusting them. You probably shouldn't be trusting them. Again, the thing that really boggles my mind too is that you have someone like me who has 230 some subscribers and they're going after me. Like seriously, you're going after me. There's people that have hundreds of thousands, millions, even tens of thousands, and yet they're worried about me. Like that's an admission that they're worried, right? Like that's an admission they're worried. I do my best on this kind of stuff, but there's a lot of people that are also very good, better than me at this kind of stuff. I'm always trying to get better, but there's a lot of people that are better than me, and you know the point being is that it will be, within the next 5 years, maybe 10 years, that nobody with any credibility, or at the very least enough credibility that you should be taking them seriously, will be on YouTube. So the point I'm trying to get across here is that if you don't at least have an account on these other platforms and have followed the people that you follow on YouTube, or even some different people in the eventual event that YouTube's going to ban pretty much everyone who has actual any forms of credibility, then I really don't know what to tell you, because that's going to happen, sooner rather than later. Sooner rather than later, like I said, anybody with any credibility is not going to be on YouTube. And if you're still on YouTube holding out hope for YouTube, then you're going to be caught with your hands in the cookie jar, because you're going to be screwed, right? Like you're going to be screwed. You could have help these other people build their presence on these other platforms. Meanwhile, you're still stuck on YouTube. Now, again, I'm not saying don't watch on YouTube. I'm simply saying that preferably don't watch on YouTube, to be honest. But all things being equal, at least have an account on these other platforms and follow the people that you follow on YouTube, because again, eventually it's going to get to the point, like I say, to where nobody with credibility, at least when it comes to political commentary, is going to be on YouTube. Um, so as far as why they got rid of the video, I really don't know why. Again, their reasoning is always, oh, it's questioning the WHO. But again, I didn't question the WHO. The people I was questioning was the government doctors, right? The government doctors were the ones I'm questioning. I find it very ironic that the WHO's official position right now is um, not supporting lockdowns. And number two, there was the WHO doctor, I think it was, came out recently skeptical of the vaccines. And again, if you come across as too as too skeptical of the lockdowns or too skeptical of the vaccines, but they can censor you for that, which again is what the WHO's position is. But people like Fauci and all these government doctors can talk endlessly about how we need to lock down, and yet they face no repercussions whatsoever. I find it very ironic that the rules only apply to the little guys, right? The rules only apply to the little guys. Now, it's not necessarily just the little guys, because again, there's people out there that have hundreds of thousands of followers, even some in the millions, that YouTube goes after, and the reality is that it's the independent people they're going after, right? It's the independent people. Some CBC journalist or CNN journalist with 5,000 followers or 1,000 followers can probably say whatever they want, but I'm not going to name any names, but people with hundreds of thousands of followers have to constantly censor themselves because they're independent, right? So the reality is that I wish YouTube would just be honest and said it's not questioning the WHO that they hate so much. That's just a cover for the reality is that they hate any form of independent thought. Any form of independent thought is what they hate. If you work for CBC, you can say whatever you want. If you work for CNN, you can say whatever you want. But if you're independent, you can't say whatever you want, even if you agree with most of it. That's the funny part. You can agree with most of it, but if you question it in the least bit, they're still going to censor you. So again, the two take-home points here being is that again, I'm not going to be on YouTube forever, and me again, I'm not that big of a deal. But the point I'm trying to get at here is that credible people aren't going to be on YouTube that much longer. Because again, like I say, at this point, the way I see it is that anybody who YouTube isn't going after, you probably shouldn't be listening to. You probably shouldn't be listening to anybody that YouTube isn't going after at this point, because if YouTube's going after them, that's an admission that they actually have some critical thinking skills. That's an admission that they actually are, um, you know, using some common sense when it comes to this whole situation. So anyway, the next thing I wanted to bring up, getting away from that, is from Laura Perrins, and she says, we had the second lockdown to save Christmas. They canceled Christmas anyway. They said if we had Christmas, we would need a lockdown for January. Having canceled Christmas, they'll lock down January anyway. You get it, yeah. And again, this is the point I've been trying to make for months now, that we're not going to go back to normal. Like we just need to lock down for 28 days or 14 days or whatever amount they tell you. How ignorant do you still have to be to genuinely believe that? Like, seriously, how ignorant do you have to be to genuinely believe that? We have areas that are in third, fourth lockdowns already. We have areas that are, extending mask mandates multiple times. Like, again, they're being very honest with people. And this is one of the ways that I think that evil people get away with doing evil things, is that they don't necessarily come right out and say that, I'm gonna do evil things. They say it by, their way of admitting this kind of stuff is through glaring contradictions, through not following their own rules, that kind of stuff. That's how um, that's how I think that these people still have somewhat of a conscience, that they're, in their mind, it's, hey, we're not following our own rules. If you're going to let us, do that, if you're going to let us walk all over you, then that's on you, right? I think that's how these people get away with this kind of stuff, at least in their mind. It's we told you 14 days to flatten the curve, and we're almost a year into it. We told you, oh, we just need a second lockdown, then we'll be good. And, did that end up doing anything? No. They told you, oh, we just need a third lockdown. Oh, did that do anything? No. Again, so they're just going to keep moving the goalposts. This is the reason why that I can't help but point out the obvious, that the average person these days, their critical thinking skills are non-existent. The average person's critical thinking skills these days are literally non-existent, because if they were, they would be questioning this stuff. They would be questioning this stuff because, again, like, regardless of whether or not you trust them, whether or not you think it works or not, again, if the lockdowns work, then you shouldn't have to do them multiple times. If the mask mandates work, you shouldn't need lockdowns. If social distancing works, then you shouldn't need masks. Like, again, it's um, the thing that bothers me is that, like, why can these people not pick a lane? Like, why can they not pick a lane? Now, how they get away with it, another reason too, is that they know that the average person is dumb enough to go along with whatever they say, right? They know the average person is dumb enough to go along with whatever they say. Because again, I think the goal for them is they just continuously just break people's spirit more and more and more until they. And I think this is another. Now that I think about it, I think this is another thing that we could start seeing here, is that I think eventually we're going to start to see people that just completely lose their you know what. We're going to see people that they lost their business, they're on the verge of losing their house, or they do lose their house, and they are just going to lose their you know what. I'm not going to say, not make any bold predictions, but I think you're going to have situations to where people lose their you know what, and I think violence could, I think violence inevitably will happen. I'm not supporting it. Don't try and put words in my mouth. I'm just saying, when you take away people's livelihoods for no reason, and on top of that, you tell them it's only going to be 28 days, and it's a lot longer than that. Um, and not only that, these inevitably people, more and more people find out that they did absolutely nothing. Eventually, people are gonna just lose their you know what, and this is the other problem too, is that the people you least want to screw with are the people that have the least to lose. Right? The people that have the least to lose are the ones you least want to screw with. So again, I think that that's something to look out for too. But again, the main point here is that for the people that aren't woke up, which probably isn't many people watching this, but I'm sure a lot of people know these kind of people, this is the point that needs to be made, that they're just going to keep moving the goalposts infinitum. They're just going to keep moving the goalposts. The cases don't matter. It doesn't matter if the lockdowns don't work. It doesn't matter if the masks don't work. They're just going to keep moving the goalposts infinitum. It doesn't matter what happens. It doesn't matter what happens. If the cases go up, then they just, we got to lock down more. If the cases go down, it's, we're not out of the woods yet. And the problem with the PCR testing is that at this point, given the amount of testing we're doing, it's literally impossible for the case numbers to go down to a number that would satisfy these people. So again, it is literally a no-win situation. It is a no-win situation. There's no way to please these people. So I don't know why we're trying to do it. I don't know why we're trying to do it. This is from Ted Petru, and he points out a chart here of Sweden's all-cause mortality, saying Sweden's two-year mortality rate in 2019-2020 is one of the lowest in the last 10 years. I even overestimated 2020 deaths by 2 to 3%. Share this to everyone who tries to point at Sweden as an example of what policy failure. The strategy has been a huge success. Now, again, they point out that, the curve in Sweden's been pretty bad lately. But again, what they don't tell you is that, again, it's still not as bad as several other European countries, though several of them being locked down. Again, they never show you that, California's curve is worse than Florida's or Texas's, right? Again, it's just the lockdown people. Again, I find these people incredibly, stupid, for lack of a better word, because again, the only way that I take these people seriously is that you really have to ask these people, okay, what would you need to see to admit that the lockdowns don't work? Like, what would they need to see? And I've never heard a coherent answer on this one. Like, I've really never heard a coherent answer, because again, if you they point out their handful of examples to show that they're right, which isn't enough example. Again, the only way that lockdowns make sense is if there's a perfectly clear correlation. You have 100 areas that lock down, and 95 or more of them, there's a clear correlation between a reduction in cases in those lockdowns, and that isn't the case, right? They'll point towards Australia and New Zealand, but yet they'll completely ignore the much larger amount of areas that locked down that did nothing. Again, like California, New York, you have Ontario, you have Manitoba, you have Quebec, you have Slovenia, you have a lot of these other European countries as well. And then you have places like, Florida, you have South Dakota, you have Sweden, even places like Mexico, and a lot of these third world countries too. They're not paranoid about this. It's not an issue there. The only places that are still paranoid about COVID are the Canada and the U.S. and a lot of the European countries. Nowhere else is paranoid about this whole situation, and the reason for that is that we're the only places that have the overly biased mainstream media, where that we're a lot more corrupt than we'd like to think, like all this kind of stuff. So um, as far as this stuff goes too, like, this is the thing that really bothers me about these people too, is that the onus is on these people. If you want to radically alter the way people live, the onus had better be on you. You know how the old saying goes: extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Not only do they not have extraordinary evidence, they have next to no evidence. And this is one of the many things that just bothers me so much about this situation, is that they have next to no evidence. None, like next to none. And you know what? There's many other things when it comes to Australia and New Zealand. I mean, the one thing being is that I don't think it's public what their PCR threshold's at, because if it's lower than what we're at, then that would explain the difference in cases. That would explain the reduction in cases too. So there's a lot of things that make Australia and New Zealand not a fair comparison, right? Comparing California to Florida or Texas and New York, or to Ontario, that's a lot fairer of a comparison, because the demographics are similar, the population density is similar, the PCR threshold is similar, all that kind of stuff, right? So anyway, the last thing I wanted to bring up is from T. Lee Humphrey saying, yesterday Health Canada said from January to June of this year, 17,062 Canadians died of opioid overdoses, when you consider that 13,799 died from you know what over a longer period of time. It would appear the Trudeau government is ignoring a more serious long-term medical crisis. Now, again, this is just, again, another endless piece of evidence that we should not be so paranoid about this whole virus situation. Again, this is one of the endless contradictions of these people, is that they say, oh, we got to lock down so we can save lives. Oh, we got to save lives. Well, again, if you're so worried about saving lives, then why aren't you worried about opioid overdoses? Why are they not worried about cancer? Why are they not worried about all these other things? Why are they not worried about smoking? Again, if you really want to save lives, why don't you want to ban smoking? Why don't you want to ban alcohol? Again, it's not about saving lives. It is about pushing a political agenda. This has been so obvious for 6, 7, 8 months now that it's really not even funny, and it just really bothers me how more people can't pick up on this. Like, it's not about saving lives. It's not about saving lives. Um, Again, if they cared about saving lives, they wouldn't be so selective about which lives they want to save. If it was about saving lives, they would want to save the most amount of lives. And if you want to save the most amount of lives, you're not, the virus is not, it's not, probably not even top 10 on your list, for sure not top 5. So again, it's just one of the other many lies of this whole situation. So anyway, if you liked the video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe. If you haven't already, make sure you check out those links below. Follow me on those other platforms. If you want to donate, again, I very much appreciate that as well. But again, check out those links. Have a good day, and stay tuned for more.